Okay, we did one-digit divisors, standard algorithm, and our models. Now we're going to be dividing decimals by a two-digit whole number. Okay, so these are the steps that we are going to use. Sometimes you have to add a 0. Remember yesterday when I said sometimes you'll end up with what would be a remainder, but you cannot have a remainder in a decimal problem. So we add zeros until we end up with nothing left. So this is dividing decimals by two-digit whole numbers. And we're not going to be using models because that would be a lot of boxes like we did earlier. This would be the number that we're dividing by. Anything above 9 would be just way too many groups. So we're going to do it this way. Okay, so the first step is we're going to set up our problem. We're going to bring up the decimal. That's one of the biggest parts. Bring up the decimal. Then we're going to divide like normal. But I want to mark that there are no remainders. Let me move this up. There are no remainders when dividing decimals. If you end up with a remainder, then you have to do the following. If you end up with a remainder, we're going to talk about adding 0. If you end up with a remainder and have no more numbers to bring down, this is what you do. First step would be to add a 0 to the dividend. Because if it is in the dividend, it doesn't matter how many zeros you add after the entire, after the decimal point. If it's at the end, it's the same number. It's equivalent. Then bring it down, and you're going to continue to divide. Step 5, I'm going to zoom out just a tad, okay? Step 5 is to repeat step 4 until we have no more leftovers. And then we check our work. And then on the bottom, I'm going to put check work. Okay. All right, so let's do some practice problems. Let's do example. I'm going to write these down. And I made this suggestion yesterday that if you want to try a couple on your own, then pause the video after I write it down, try it, and then replay it to see if you got it correct. That would really help to see if you are understanding it or you need more practice or to just try it. Okay, so I have a couple just regular 1 digit, and now I'm going to do my 2 digits. These are ones that pull down. We didn't have a lot of practice with those yesterday. So I wanted to practice pulling down the, let's see here, 37, there's 372. And then I'll have a couple more. Okay. I wanted to practice pulling down the 0 and adding the 0 before I moved on to double digits. All right, so the first thing I do is set up my problem like this, and then I move up the decimal. I'm going to divide like normal. 4 goes into 5 one time. That's 1 left over. Bring down my 6. 4 goes into 16 4 times. Bring down my 8. 4 goes in 2 times. So we did not have to add a 0 to that one. That is how we learned yesterday. Now this one we're going to have to add a 0. This period, or not, the decimal point's right there. Okay. So here's what I mean when I say you have to add a 0. Bring down the 5. It goes in 1 time. It goes in 6 times. Not 6 times. I'm so sorry. It goes in 4 times. And I have 2 left over, but I have nothing else to pull down. So I'm going to add a 0 here because 45 and 8 tenths and 45 and 80 hundredths is the same. I'm going to bring down my 0 here. And that makes it 11 and 45 hundredths. And I have nothing left over, so I don't need to repeat it. Okay, here's my next one. $27 goes into 97 3 times, and that is 81. I'm going to bring the 2 down. It goes in 6 times, which ends up being 162. So that one we did not need to add a 0. Now we know how to know when to add a 0 and when not to. The next one does not have a 0, does not have a decimal point at all. But if we remember that decimal points are right here, if there's no decimal point, they're always at the end. 15 goes into 37 2 times. That's 30. Bring down. 15 goes into 72 4 times, and that is 60. And then I have 12 left over, but I don't have anything else to pull down. So I'm going to add the 0 on the end after the decimal point. Now I make sure to tell you about the decimal point, because if it does not have a decimal point, you need to add it. So now I'm going to bring down the 0. That's 8 times, and now that is 0 left. I'm going to do one more. $34 into 523.6. 34 goes into 52 one time. That's 18. That goes in 5 times, and that's 170. And that's 4 times. So there is dividing decimals by 2-digit whole numbers.